Another week on Capitol Hill, Republicans scored a big victory in their battle to expand school vouchers.
So less than a year into the program, top Republicans want to double the number of vouchers the state hands out. It would cost more than $300 million.
But as WSMV investigative reporter Stacey Cameron tells us tonight, the fight to grow that program threatens to split the GOP caucus in two.
Of all the bills getting pushed here at the state capitol, one stands out as having the ability to derail a big part of the Republican legislative agenda this session. That's the bill to expand Tennessee's school voucher program. And the reason is simple. While GOP leadership is all in on growing vouchers, they can't get everyone in the party on board to do it.
That split played out this week in the House Education Committee when 5 conservative Republicans spoke out against voucher expansion, then crossed party lines to join Democrats and vote against it. The bill still passed out of committee, but Lamberth is now facing criticism when it comes to his call for collecting student data in an immigration bill, while choking off efforts to collect student data on vouchers. Listen to his remarks and my question on his inconsistency.
We should never, ever be afraid of data, numbers, facts, figures.
How many of the 20+ thousand students that received it were actually in private school?
No, sir. Don't know and don't care.
How do you figure those two contradicting statements that would sound hypocritical?
I guess we just have a difference of opinion between myself and my Democratic colleagues as to what data points are critical to us trying to make good decisions.
Now, several bills that would have added accountability and data tracking measures to the school voucher program died in subcommittees this week, while the voucher expansion bill, it moves over to the finance committees in both the House and Senate, where the fight over expanding that program is expected to ratchet up another notch this coming week. Reporting from Capitol Hill, I'm WSMV4 investigative reporter Stacey Cameron.